I have been depersonalized for 2 years now. Most people don't expect, when you think of someone who's depersonalized, maintaining it intentionally in the way that I have, a lot of my behaviors, which I'll show. So, neurological mechanisms. Along this thumb, I feel this vibration sensation to here, mainly. I feel this 24/7 when I'm asleep, every second, uninterruptedly for the last 2 years. And never had it before that. Never had neurological problems. I feel this vibration sensation also in my forehead, and by maintaining my attention on the vibration sensation, but also just not really directing it anywhere in particular, my brain or body intuitively knows how to maintain it. It's like a cognitive process. Obviously there is some aspect of intention control. It's very intuitive. And so yeah, I call that the thread or the string, and I feel this all the time, and it's an important aspect of my hypothesis, an important part of researching. Okay, what are other symptoms that I have? So you'll see it, my thumb's already in position. I do this in order, and you can see maybe it'll twitch like this. Oh, look at that twitch. Oh, perfect. Oh yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to like kind of show off. I mean, technically, I don't know. Would I be able to replicate this if I wanted to intentionally? You can see like some jitters. I get it in my bicep too. Oh, I'm so glad. Usually I had a hard time showing it. That's clutch. That's real clutch. I'm gonna save that. Okay, under the right parameters, if I go to the edge of depersonalization, I will get adrenaline rushes, and a good situation for this is really numb, really locked in thread, falling asleep at night, and leaning on the thread will evoke some adrenaline rushes, which we could record on EKG. It will also evoke fucking like very myoclonic type jerks in my arms or my legs. This only happens because I'm maintaining it indefinitely long term. This wouldn't happen if people, as I suggest about a BCI, would be like short term. So I get these myoclonic jerks that occur if I lean on the thread and I balance out of that depersonalization while at the same time still like resisting it, and it'll just happen like in the interval of like 1 or 2 units of muscle jerk. So it's not like a total electrocution, it's like a at most like 3-second electrocution type vibe, but like some serious neurological shit going on. What other symptoms do I have? I mean, obviously I feel depersonalized. I interpret that, I say that as lack of sensory experience of interoception, which is internal sensation, exteroception, which is external sensation, and proprioception, the common, why people feel out of their body. And the thing is, the hypothesis works in such a way that I touch on the proprioception relevance, because the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway actually is the pathway that transmits this proprioception information, and it's the same pathway that transmits vibration information. So that's good. There's a lot of different connections that you'll see pop up. It definitely made me more confident. The Thalamo-Cortical Dysconnectivity model of depersonalization is proposed by John Crystal, Yale, MD, and Douglas Bremner et al. And also Sierra and Barrios. I can do it now. If I involuntarily, if I voluntarily relax my eyes, involuntarily they will move in any direction. So let's try that right now. Alright, I'm excited to see what that looks like on camera. Another symptom that I experience is ringing tinnitus, and this will increase in like direct relation to increases in pain. So I don't have it all the time. I only have it when I'm kind of pushing the numb to its limits. Then I'll get these ringing tinnitus, and then I can also manipulate it with the thread to some extent to increase it or decrease it. Another symptom that I experience is along the thread. So the thread usually is in my left arm and in my face. I can feel it in my feet, the thread here, around there. It'll move around, or the string. I'll feel the string, And if I watch like an emotionally significant video, so something that's inspirational, like inspirational YouTube video, and nice tight string, what I will then experience is the sensation of like shivers down your spine, but I'll experience it along the thread. So in my arm, leg, or face, I'll experience it. So understanding that symptom would obviously be very useful for investigation and furthering the hypothesis and so on. I also experienced pins and needles, heat, cold, pain sensations along the thread. And this matches up well. The heat and pain sensation, I know for sure, matches well with the hypothesis because the spinothalamic tract is right next to the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway, and they both synapse at the same spot at the ventro-posteromedial and lateral nuclei of the thalami. Yeah, so I had these pain sensations very infrequently, very occasionally, but still very distinctly. Last symptom that I'll list is that when I abuse DP, if I really abuse it, I'll notice increased sensitivity right there at the funny bone. So in one sentence, the hypothesis would be a misconnection that is located between the ventro-posterolateral and ventro-posteromedial nuclei of the thalamus. Right now I'm going to talk about the hypothesis section of the essay. So pathways involved. There's two pathways that are important to understand: the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway and this pathway S, which is an undefined pathway. It's one that still needs to be discovered, and that's part of the reason that I'm sharing this, to see if maybe someone already knows it or if it still is something for science itself to come upon. So the dorsal column medial lemniscus pathway is responsible for transmitting vibration and proprioception information. And the pathway S transmits information pertaining to the perception of interoception and exteroception. It must have resting state activity, and it must transmit all psychological and physical internal pain. Location. DP is the result of nerve misconnection between ventro-posterolateral and ventro-posteromedial nuclei of the thalamus. This is where the synapse of the second and third order neurons of the DCML are. So upon a catalytic event, neuron exciting stress, that could be trauma, that could just be work stress, that could be a panic attack, a fundamental sensory perception pathway S will disconnect, and then it reconnects primarily to the third order neurons of the DCML. Okay? And then that results in this right here, this tactile sensation that I talked about, to occur in many parts of the body. So I get it here, throughout the thumb. I can get it in my foot, just random places, everywhere on the body, really. It essentially stimulates Brodmann's areas 1 through 5. So the result is that from this misconnection, signals transmitting from the S pathway are constantly disrupted. This causes a bunch of symptoms to occur. So I already talked about this tactile sensation is the most prominent one. Muscle twitches and spasms occur, which again relates to Brodmann's area 4. And I can, to some extent, have some type of voluntarily control over discontinuing or continuing these spasms. It also results in, once in a while, I'll also feel pain along the tactile sensation. So I'll get pain and heat sensations along the thread, the string. And so there's probably a connection to the spinothalamic tract. My symptoms: decreased sensory experience, including but not limited to pain, emotions, hunger, proprioception, taste, and smell. I haven't observed any auditory and visual reductions. So this whole hypothesis is grounded in the Thalamo-Cortical Dysconnectivity model of depersonalization, which is proposed by John Crystal and Douglas Bremner and all those other contributors. I formulated my own hypothesis prior to discovering this one. It just happens that I didn't even know dysconnectivity was like something in the scientific literature at the time. So it's pretty cool that they line up so well. Would have helped me if I knew this way earlier, but that's fine. Just to quote the book, this is from Feeling Unreal by Daphne Simeon and Jeff Abugel. Okay, so Crystal proposed that dissociation involves not only corticolimbic dysconnectivity as suggested by the Sierra and Barrios model, but also certain types of dysconnectivity between different areas of brain cortex, which he calls cortical dysconnectivity. Furthermore, Crystal suggested that additional thalamo-cortical dysconnectivity may exist as early as in the sensory gating occurring in the thalamus. The thalamus is part of the brain responsible for relaying and modulating incoming perception from the outside world via our sensory organs. Okay, it's also important to note that there's a strong systematic relationship between DP and temporal lobe epilepsy. I'm going to quote the Sierra and Barrios study, but this isn't the only one. Greisinger reported behaviors redolent of depersonalization. Some epileptic patients declare themselves quite unable to describe the type of sensory anomalies they experience. One said, "Perceptions emerge into consciousness in a way that cannot be defined, but only described as saying that they seem as if they were different. The singing of birds sounds different, as do the utterance of my relatives. The air feels different, and the body feels as if it is made from another material." So Hewlings-Jackson reported depersonalization-like experiences as part of what he termed epileptic dreamy states. Pick, in turn, suggested a related mechanism between DP and epileptic dreamy states. He says, "Although I'm not prepared to conclude the symptomology of my depersonalized patients is entirely to be understood as a form of epilepsy, I believe that the psychological similarities too significant to refrain from liking the clinical pictures." So basically though, check out the essay. You can see I block quoted stuff from the Sierra Barrios study, and there's a strong relationship between temporal lobe epilepsy and depersonalization. Another symptom that I experience is adrenaline rushes if I edge at the end of depersonalization with a very locked-in thread. And the easiest time to do this would be at night when I'm going to sleep. I can lean on the thread is the best way I could describe that. And yeah, when I do that, I can feel some adrenaline rush going on in my heart. I feel moments of increased interoception for sure. Another thing that I'll get during those moments, if I lean on the thread at night, is I'll get very intense jerks in my arms and legs, like I'm being electrocuted for 2 seconds or 3 seconds, but very distinct, full body jerks. And I've never had neurological disorder so far. I've gone to neurologists, I've talked about my symptoms, but they haven't been able. I'm in the process of kind of telling them my theory, but I didn't want to just override and be like, this is what it is. Let the doctor do their job first and give their opinion before putting my own information towards them to, I guess, bias the investigation. So yeah, that's another symptom. In terms of what I refer to as depersonalization, that'd be markedly decreased interoception, exteroception, and proprioception.